Welcome everyone to this week's video. Today we are on Fish Friday number 36 and we have an awesome prehistoric fish that you could put in your aquarium today. I don't necessarily advise it, but you could. Today's fish that we are going to be talking about is the West African lungfish. West African lungfish, or scientific name Protopterus annectens. Protopterus annectens. It's also known as the Tana lungfish, or very simply, the African lungfish. It is part of the family Lepidosirenidae. It used to be part of the family Protopteridae. Used to be its own family. Well, there are four total species of African lungfish, and then there's one in South America. But recently, in 2017, a study came out that determined that the African lungfish and the South American lungfish are actually better grouped to be in the same family. So they are now Lepidosirenidae, with the solo South American lungfish. These are found in Western and Middle Africa, Central Africa, even down to Northern South Africa. That's about how far south they can get. As you can tell on here, they have a very, very prominent snout. Look at this thing. It's just... Oh, my cat jumped on the desk. Sorry about that. But they have a definite prominent snout. And very, very small eyes. They do not use their eyes very much at all. As you can tell from the picture, they are also kind of eel-like. You know, real long body. But they're a little stockier than most of your eels. You know, their bodies are sometimes between 9 to 15 times the length of the head. Which doesn't give you a really bit of size until we start talking about that. As you can also tell from this picture, the pectoral fins and the pelvic fins, so that would be the fins right behind the gills, and on a normal fish, the ones down by the anal fin, those are in a thread-like, you know, they're thread-like. They have, you know, threads. And we'll get into them a little bit about it. Also, if you look, the pectoral fins have this basal fringe. So they have this kind of like small fin to the back of it. And the pectoral fins are about 3 times the head length. And pelvic fins are about twice the head length. So, you know, just kind of imagine, you know, the back legs being... a little bit shorter than the front legs, and they are basically legs. Also, as you can tell, the dorsal and tail fin are fused into one single, even over into the anal fin a little bit, but just one singular fin. They do have semi-external gills. This is a younger West African lungfish, and they will have some external gills, but they don't use those. They use them to how do I put this? They use those to supplement their oxygen. And we'll get into that in just a little bit. I just wanted to throw that out there. As you can tell in this picture, they have very small, very soft cycloid scales that are embedded in the skin. These are really kind of a slicker feeling fish. Definitely not your hard armored fish. As you could tell from both of the pictures, they are going to have like an olive or brown color on their back with little dark spots kind of throughout, and then have this lighter belly. Yes, I have touched one. I've touched several actually. Now, all told, these can grow to about a meter, which is about 3.3 feet, 3.5 feet. So that's about the size that these can get. But these, if you think about the last one, you know, these look like a hefty fish, and they are. They're about they can get up to about 7 or 8 pounds. They can get pretty heavy, maybe even heavier. I'm not entirely sure on that. There's not a whole lot of information about their sort of size that I could find anyway. Now, going back, do you remember I was talking about the external gills and that they use them to supplement? Well, as the name would suggest, these have lungs. These are actually an obligate air breather. Anyway, this fish cannot survive without access to oxygen. They will actually go up to the top of the water and gulp air. They have to do that because they actually have functioning lungs. Basically, they have something in there that's more similar to a lung, but it's kind of evolved like a swim bladder, and they have 2 of them, and it's highly vascularized, basically pocket of tissue, which also allows them to sort of bounce along the bottom whenever they are moving. And we were talking about their legs. Well, they'll actually use those thread-like fins to sort of crawl or walk along the bottom whenever they need to. They're not really a super burst, at least from what I understand. They're not a really super burst predator. Now, these are a demersal fish, meaning most of the time they're going to spend their life buried in riverbeds. Basically, if they're not out hunting, not out moving, they want to be buried in mud at the bottom of the river. And in fact, one thing about Western Africa, if you can think about it, you think about what's in the Western Africa. Well, in the north, you have the Sahara Desert. You got all those real dry regions. How is this fish, found there? How does a fish this big that lives this long survive? Well, that's actually because they do something that's called estivation. So during the dry season, and we've talked about estivation a little bit, but during the dry season, they will estivate by furiously, and I mean furiously. Whenever they are digging for estivation, they go straight down into the mud and they just kick up a whole bunch. And what they'll do is they'll actually make a mud and mucus cocoon. So they'll secrete their mucus, and that'll actually hold the mud around their body when it's starting to get to dry season. And then they'll basically hibernate inside that mud and mucus cocoon. And they don't just do it during the dry season. They can actually do it just during any normal droughts. Whenever there's just a normal drought, they'll do it. And they can estimate, well, I've seen some conflicting opinions. Some have said that they can only estivate for up to a year. Some of them have said that they'll estivate up to 4 years. I don't know which. And it's probably dependent on how healthy the fish is. Because when they are estivating, they'll actually start digesting their own muscle tissue to obtain the nutrients they need to survive. So, if they're a big, healthy fish, they can probably survive quite a bit long time. Whereas if it's one of these smaller baby ones, they're probably not going to be able to survive so long in estivation. And by the way, right here, you can tell, here's sort of like I think that's an external gill right there. You can see him kind of up on those back pelvic fins, kind of pushing himself off. And those lungs actually help the fish kind of go up because, air is obviously lighter than water. And so they do, they'll use their lungs to kind of help prop their head up and make it to where they're lighter in the water and make it easier for them to walk. Now, these are a prehistoric fish. These have been around a very, very long time. They have not changed in nearly 400 million years. Some minor morphological changes, but essentially, you go back in time 400 million years ago, this is the fish you have. Just maybe looks slightly different, not by much. Now, sort of the interesting fact that we're going to end on, that we like to end videos on, is probably in regards to their diet. Not necessarily their diet, but what they can do for their feeding. Most of your lungfish are going to have a diet of mollusks, crabs, prawn, and very small fish. Just kind of whatever they can get their mouth around, they're going to eat. Which is why they're not necessarily the best fish for you to have in an aquarium, because they'll just kind of eat anything in there that they can find. But here's the interesting facts. They can go up to 3.5 years without any food whatsoever. And I think this is where the estivation part comes in. Basically, if a big healthy fish, if there's not enough food around, he looks around, he's like, there's no food. He just buries himself, makes his cocoon, and just buries himself, and then just basically is there, sleeps there until something tells him, wake up, there's more food available. So it's actually pretty interesting how that has evolved in there, allowing them to survive these very fluctuating seasons. Because a lot of the fish in Africa, one of the most popular fish in the aquarium come from Africa, besides your Lake Tanganyika and those Lake Victoria cichlids that a lot of people have, is probably your annual killifish. And they're fish that are born, grow up, spawn, and die all within 1 year. And a lot of people have done that in an aquarium setting. Basically, they get these annual killifish and provide them a home, and then they'll just let them grow, die, and make more babies, and just continue the cycle. It's really interesting. Now, as I've said, you can get these in an aquarium, and they're not necessarily that expensive. You can find these anywhere from $50 to $150. You can find marbled lungfish, you can find leopard lungfish. There's a bunch of crazy prices out there. Chances are you're probably going to want one around the $100 range if you decide to have these in your aquarium, because of just the fact probably that more expensive is coming from a more reputable breeder necessarily. These are caught a lot. These are caught very often. These are not in any trouble whatsoever right now, I guess I should say. And a lot of these African countries actually collect these for food fish. You think about it, you got a foot-long fish that weighs 7 pounds. That's a lot of meat. But thank you guys so much for coming in. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you again. If I don't, please be safe. Have a great day. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you do, I would really appreciate it. I hope you've been enjoying these as much as I have, and I'm definitely going to continue doing them. Thank you guys so much again. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your loved ones. And